Today's devotional is entitled, Where I am going isn't where I've been. We are all on a journey, and some of us know the roadmap of where we are going. Some just going with no purpose at all or even an idea as to the destination, but they are going. And some of us are just sitting there trying to figure out what to do. Regardless if they're moving or not, they're still on a journey. You know, going places are exciting. It's a new place to see, to experience, new people to meet. And we plan our time around these journeys. We read up on them. We watch YouTube videos on these places that we're going to make sure that we get the most out of it, that we maximize our time while we're there on the way to our journey and to our destination. But see, not all journeys are good though. And let's just say that the word journey is just a replacement for addiction, relationships, work. A journey is more than just a location, but the things that we get to experience. And sometimes we set out on a journey only to hit a roadblock or a setback, and we get discouraged and we don't leave. Now, how many of us are on a journey where we know exactly where we're going? And when the quiet sets in, a journey to addiction. And when the going gets tough, a journey to lash out, to argue with those around us. And when times get really, really lean, a journey to work even harder at the expense of God and family. When we feel like a journey before us is something even God has given to us or put upon our heart, only to find out that the actions that we were doing don't come from God, but from our own hearts, that we tried to do it in the way that we think is best and not allow God to do what he does best by guiding us on this journey. You see, Saul is someone that we know was on a journey. His journey, though, was to defeat and murder all the disciples of the Lord. And Saul knew his journey very, very well and was happy to do it. And he thought it really was the most important thing to do in the world. And we see in Acts chapter 9, verses 1 through 9, but Saul, still breathing threats and murders against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest and asked him for letters in the synagogues at Damascus, so that if he found any belonging to the way, men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. Now as he went on his way, he approached Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven shone around him. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, Who are you, Lord? And he said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But rise and enter the city, and you will be told what you are to do next. The men who were traveling with him stood speechless, hearing the voice but seeing no one. Saul rose from the ground, and although his eyes were opened, he saw nothing. So they led him by hand and brought him into Damascus. Now you see here, Saul was on a journey that he thought was the one that he was destined to do. But God changed his journey. Saul going in one direction, and suddenly God changed that direction. God took someone who was on a completely different path and said, where you are going is not where you have been. You see, Saul then became Paul, who became instrumental into starting the church that he was so desperately trying to snuff out. And God said, no, your journey is not that, it's going to be this. And he flipped the script and allowed him to change directions. You know, as we also see, as Jesus was on his journey, he met and changed countless people on their own journeys. You see, the path that you and I are on might not be the one that we need to be, but the thoughts and decisions that we make every day alter this path a little bit, some good, some bad. You know, the bad ones tend to have us walk away from God, but the good choices causes us to turn around and follow God. And we even see the rich young man wanting to follow the path of Jesus only to find his course changed because of his heart. And in Mark chapter 10, verses 17 through 22, we have the story of the rich young man. And as he was setting out on his journey, a man ran up and knelt before him and asked him, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone. You know the commandments: do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not bear false witness, do not defraud, honor your father and mother." And as he said to him, "Teacher, all of these I've kept from my youth." And Jesus, looking at him, loved him and said to him, "You lack one thing. Go, sell all that you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me." Disheartened by that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. You see, this young man was willing to do what was needed to get to heaven, up to a point of not giving up his earthly possessions. He left to return to his own journey as opposed to letting God lead him on a new journey. What I find interesting in the story is Jesus knew full well what was going to be the thing that set this man apart, because he knew full well that he was following all of these other commandments. But Jesus didn't look at him upset or snarky. He says, and Jesus, looking at him, loved him and told him what he needed to do. How many times have we come to a decision where we know what we need to do, but it goes against everything that we're supposed to do, that causes us to possibly lose friends, face when it's the right thing to do, and we don't do it because we're afraid of what everybody else is going to do? This man was afraid to lose all of his earthly possessions, to lose everything that he gained, even though it was going to give him eternal life. You see, Jesus spoke plainly and clearly as to where we are to go, where our journey must take us, and what we must do. And we see in Matthew 16, verse 24 and 25, and Jesus told his disciples, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." See, the idea that these people would take up a cross, an emblem of death in a horrible way, was something that they had a hard time fathoming. To embrace God is the journey that we all strive for. And this idea that you may be hurt, may be made fun of, or even killed on this journey is what causes so many people to fall short. That where they're going is where they came from. But for us as Christians, need to say that where we're going is not where I have been before. And we see in Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 and 14, "Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. And those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few." They say that what you want in life is rarely easy, and if it comes really, really easy, then we probably shouldn't want it. We as Christians, though, know that when we made the decision to follow Christ, that our life is going to be hard, that the journey that we are suddenly on becomes more difficult and more treacherous. But where we are going isn't where we have been before. There's a lot of hope and pray and love in this idea that we're going to be persecuted, we're going to be treated horrible. But like Jesus said, narrow is the gate that we will be going through, and there'll be so few people going through it. The earthly treasures and earthly gains that we get in this world stay here. They don't go with us. And I can proudly say that where I was going earlier is not where I needed to go. And where I'm going now is not where I was before. Because I follow what Christ wants me to do, to take up his cross daily, to follow him, even when the going gets difficult. That is our devotional for today. Where I am going isn't where I've been.